Hi folks, Rod here for U.S. Tactical and Sporting Arms and Cenmass.us. That's Cenmass.us. That's our website, and if you want the best deals ever on stuff, you're going to check it out. Hey, we're getting a lot of call at our store for the hot selling item, which is probably the #1 concealed carry handgun selling right now, which is Smith & Wesson's M&P Shield. This one's a 9mm. It comes in 9 and 40. And today we're installing this Apex trigger kit, which is a real hot item. The guys buy the Shield, they want a little bit nicer trigger. So here, let me read this. This is the Apex Shield Aluminum Action Enhancement Trigger and Duty/Carry Kit, red anodized. Now that's a frickin' mouthful. But it's a trigger that's not real super light. It's just a lot crisper and a little bit lighter and a lot better reset. And it has almost a 2-stage feel where you come into the trigger and then it just stops, and then you got a nice clean break after that. It's really a lot nicer than the stock trigger. So today that's what we're doing, is I'm going to install this trigger in this here Shield. And actually this one's already been put in. That's why you see the really cool looking aluminum anodized red trigger. All right. So first things first, make sure this baby's empty. It's empty. Drop your magazine. Now on these M&P Shields, there's a takedown lever inside here. Is that this lever is right there, and it's painted yellow. Right there. There's the lever. It's painted yellow. You can see, and you have to open that up before you can take one of these down. So now we just got that locked back. We've got our takedown lever down, and you just move that takedown switch to that position. Release the slide, and now we've separated the slide from the frame. So #1, we'll field strip it. Which is that simple. You want to take the slide apart. Okay. The next thing we need to do is get the sight off of here, and we take a trusty Allen wrench and we loosen the screw on the top of the sight, and we're going to take that off, and we're going to set it aside in our trusty little tray. And now we need to drift the sight off. Okay, there's a couple of ways to get this slide out. You can take your trusty block or a roll of tape, and you can take an aluminum punch or a brass punch, and you can drive that sight out of there. Or you can use a sight pushing tool. Now, this is fine. This is fine. You can drive this out with this, like this, and tap it on through there. But they're kind of stubborn when they're these sights, so is what I prefer to do is use one of these handy dandy tools here. Now a sight pushing tool, and I set that in there and I tighten it up in here, and I line this up because I don't want, when this pin pushes through here, the last thing I want it to do is to contact the slide and gouge the slide. So we're very careful with setting this tool up here. And when it first cracks it, you'll get that little snapping sound. we're going to push it on through. And underneath here, there's spring-loaded parts that want to come up out of here. So what we do is we get it through there, where it's for the most part through, and now you can see that there's a part here. I'm going to back that back off, and I'm going to make sure that I catch this right here. See, that's spring loaded, and that could go flying out of there. So I'm going to dump that part out right there. Now I really don't need to push that side off any farther for the sake of what we're doing here today, so I'm not going to. So I'm going to remove that. Now you can do the same thing with the punch. In the Apex kit, they give you the right tool for drifting this off here, which is this tool right here. That goes in here and it pushes the sight and it captures that as you go. Next thing I need to do is push down on this white keeper right here. You can look down in there and you can see right here is a white plastic thing, and then that lets you slide that down. You push this way with it, you lever it in, and then that'll let you slide that off the back. And then you can push this, extract, you can hold tension on that and push this out, and now the whole striker assembly will slide out the back, and this little plunger will come right out of here this way, and then this spring here was what was right inside here. So you drop that whole, came right out of here. Just like that. Are some parts that replace some of these parts, and they're right here. We're going to set this aside. We're going to set that aside for now. And we're going to take this spring, we're going to take this little spring here, and we're going to take this little plunger here, and we're going to replace the stock parts with those two. So look, it's time to put this back together. We've got it apart. Now we're going to install the Apex parts, which is this spring and this plunger versus the stock ones. And the way we do that is we push this forward. We set these parts in thusly. Okay, we set those in. We put our striker in, and now we take a plastic punch and push forward on that. We push forward on the plastic sleeve, and then while we do that, we push down on this until it catches. Then we can put this part on here. Come in with our handy dandy tool. Alright, let's work on getting this lower parts out of this thing. So rotate that up and pull it out. And there is a notch on it. You can see the notch on this part right here. This little notch right here. And that little notch, when it comes out, has to line up with this little notch in the frame right up in this position here. And we will drive these two pins here and here out from this side. So we'll take appropriately sized punch and drive that out, and we will take an appropriately sized punch and drive this out. And then we should be able to lift that out. Set that aside. Now we're going to want to get the trigger out of here as a unit. And you can see that when we drive these pins out, this spring becomes free. Now before we get this trigger bar out, we're going to drive the pin out of the back here so we can free up that part. And now this whole thing can all lift out. Together. Keeping in mind the orientation of this spring. Keeping in mind the orientation of this spring on the trigger bar. So keeping in mind that we're coming underneath with this spring and getting it in that way. Now is what I prefer to do.
Access to the sear pin, you're going to have to rotate the safety
down and around underneath the sear housing block. And it takes a little patience. You just have to look at it from side to side. And as you rotate it around, you have to kind of shuffle it one side or another until you can get it around. It's made to come off this way. It's a little tricky, but you'll get it. And you don't even have to take it off. You just rotate it around and out of the way until you can access the sear pin, and then you take the replace it with the apex sear from the kit. Just be patient and you'll get that safely rotated out of the way. See the sear pin laying on the table, and now I'm taking the plunger off, and now I'm going to replace the spring with the apex spring and then put the original plunger back in, and then I'll reverse the order and put the pin in, put the sear on top, and put the pin in, and then rotate that safety back around and into position. You can see here I'm just getting ready to rotate the safety back around into position. That's what I'm doing right now. Take note of the way the spring's oriented on the trigger bar. And now I'm going to install the little plastic apex pin that holds the spring in place, so that the spring remains in place in the trigger until you can drop the trigger pin in and push this plastic pin out as you do that. And so it just keeps the spring in place as you reinstall the trigger. Okay, it's time to put this thing back together, and the easiest way to do that is to sort of set the trigger and the sear housing block together. Just take the tail end of the trigger bar and put it underneath the sear, and then set the trigger and the sear housing block into the pistol at the same time. And you know, just check it for function. Even though the trigger doesn't have pins in it, you can push the bar back and forth as you see me doing in the video. And you can set the locking block assembly right over the top of the trigger, and you pretty much got her put together. Okay, you can see the plastic spring retainer that we installed earlier being pushed out as I push the trigger pin in. It's just going to get pushed right on through because it retains the spring while you put that pin in. Now all you have to do is replace the other pins, and you'll pretty much have the frame part of the trigger kit installed. If you need any help, just get a hold of us at our store or online at cenmass.us, CENTERMASS.us. That's our website. We've got lots of great deals. It's under construction. It's always improving. If there's something you want that's not on there, just get a hold of us and we'll get it for you. Just type cenmass.us right in your address bar. Hope this video is helpful, but if you don't want to do it yourself, just let us know and we'll do it for you. Now we're just evening out the pins, getting them equal on both sides. Now we're going to check it for function. Always makes sense just to check it, make sure it's all working smooth before we finish up. Looks good. Pins are all even on both sides. Everything seems to work pretty smooth. So we'll just stick the slide back on it. And put the magazine in and check it for function. And I appreciate you watching the video, and check us out at Cenmass.us.